Thank you so much, and thank you for joining. So yeah, I'm going to be sharing a research study that I've recently completed on learning design professionals' acceptance and use of large language models as design tools. And yeah, just for context, like we said, large language models are the models that underpin tools like ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, and so forth. So a very brief introduction to the research and why I conducted this research in the first place. Really goes back to the growing need that we have for scalable quality education. So this need is enshrined in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4. And in order to achieve this goal, we really need to be delivering education at scale. But there are a number of problems that surround this. So pre-COVID, there were a plethora of social and economic challenges that we were struggling with. During COVID, we saw the sudden surge in online education and training. And at the same time, we have the fourth industrial revolution happening. There is this great proliferation in AI tools, and this is also resulting in mass adult reskilling. So all of this is contributing to a desperate need to transform the education sector, but this is also resulting in an ever-expanding gap between this need for scalable quality education and our current capacity to meet this need. Then at the same time, we've got our learning design professionals, and I use this as an umbrella term for anyone who is involved in designing learning experiences. And these professionals are really central to this transformation of education, but we're also facing a host of problems ourselves. So we've got a lack of a universally accepted role definition. So there's a lot of diverse entry paths into the career. We're expected to perform a whole host of different roles and have different competencies. We also operate within the context of resource constraints and external stakeholder pressures that often leads to a disconnect between theory and practice. And then we had the COVID-19 pandemic and the rapid global pivot to emergency remote teaching and learning. And a lot of us were operating in the context of toxic work environments and burnout. And then at the same time, these rapid technological advancements are also resulting in the LD role becoming even more complex in scope and depth. So we're expected to possess even more diverse roles and competencies than ever before. So all of these challenges are contributing to a scenario in which learning design professionals' well-being and the quality of their work are being threatened. And I believe that LLMs provide a potential avenue of support. So this is really what led to this research. So I decided to investigate, firstly, which factors are influencing learning design professionals' intentions to use LLMs as design tools, and then also which factors are influencing their actual use of LLMs as design tools. So looking at those two factors of the intention to adopt these tools and the actual use of these tools. Because if we do believe that they can provide benefits, then we need to know which factors are actually going to lead to their adoption. So a lot of us are aware of the benefits that these tools can present for learning design professionals. I'm not going to go through all of these now. The slides are available for download, but there's everything from generating learning materials to streamlining and optimizing assessment. Then we're also already aware of the limitations and risks associated with these tools, which I'm also not going to go through now. So we're aware of the hallucination and the questionable accuracy, everything through to sustainability and environmental harms and unethical practices by developers. So given the benefits, but also the limitations, there are many factors that could encourage, but also dissuade these tools' use by learning design professionals. So I quite like this quote. So perhaps the question is not whether AI should be introduced into education, but rather how, when, by whom, and for what purpose. But the leading role of the human educators in education should not be underestimated, and the supporting role of technology, no matter how advanced, should not be over-exaggerated. So the theoretical framework I used is called the Unified Theory of the Acceptance and Use of Technology, or the UTAUT, which I'll refer to it as. And this is how it looks, but I decided to adapt this framework a little bit. So this was my conceptual framework and my hypotheses. So just very briefly to touch on these factors that this model proposes influences intention and use of the technology. We have performance expectancy, which is the degree to which learning design professionals believe that this tool can enhance their efficacy and outcomes and lead to job-related gains. We've got effort expectancy, which is the perceived ease of use or simplicity of using this tool. We've got social influence. So do other learning design professionals, do other industry leaders believe that we should be using LLMs in learning design work? Then facilitating conditions is the perceptions of the supportive resources available to us in our work context. So are we supported in integrating these tools into our learning design workflows? Hedonic motivation really just refers to how pleasurable, how fun, how enjoyable it is to be using these tools. Then habit refers to whether using these tools has become an automatic or routine behavior for us. And personal innovativeness is really just a lengthy way of saying it's a personality trait that refers to how much we enjoy experimenting with innovative technologies. And then I decided to incorporate two new constructs which weren't here, which relate to trust. So trust in the technology and trust in the provider, because I felt those were quite important when it comes to examining these factors. So a brief overview quickly of my methodology. I decided to conduct a quantitative cross-sectional survey, and the data analysis was done using exploratory factor analysis and structural equation modeling. And the survey was then distributed to learning design professionals who either had experience using LLMs already or were interested in using them. And the link to the survey was distributed online. In total, I had 203 participants, so 203 learning design professionals spanning 24 countries. As you can see, a very high concentration, half of them being from South Africa. And then in terms of the demographic characteristics, most of them were women between the ages of 26 and 35, holding either bachelor's or master's degrees, and working currently in either college or university settings or for e-learning or edtech companies. The majority of them, so 82%, were using LLMs already or had used them already, of which most of those were using the free version of ChatGPT, which is underpinned by the LLM GPT 3.5. So that is the model that underpins ChatGPT. So just a couple of outtakes from my findings, because we're running out of time. For each of these constructs, they had to indicate the extent to which they agree or disagree with each statement. You can see most of these scores are around a mean score of 5, which is somewhat agree. So most of them found the tools useful, easy to use, a little bit lower on the social influence score, very good scores for facilitating conditions, hedonic motivation, but habit was very low. So we haven't yet formed a habit of using these tools. Personal innovativeness was very high. So these learning design professionals are very innovative. They like exploring new technologies. And then surprisingly, the true trust constructs were somewhat positive, which I didn't expect. I thought that participants would have quite negative perceptions in terms of trust of the technology and of the provider. So that was quite surprising to me. And then these were the results of the model, or simplified to this. So the factors that proved to be significant were performance expectancy, trust in the provider, facilitating conditions, and habit. So performance expectancy and trust in the provider influence our intentions to use these tools, and facilitating conditions and habit influence our actual behavioral use of these tools. And those percentages there indicate the predictive accuracy of the model, which was quite high, so that's a good thing. Then I know we've run out of time, so you can download the slides to learn more about the implications of the findings, but it really just speaks to what we need to do if we do want to integrate these tools into learning design workflows. So there's implications for decision makers and developers in terms of appealing to performance expectancy, so highlighting how effective and useful these tools are, and then fine-tuning these models for learning design purposes. Also improving the facilitating conditions, so we need guidelines on how to use them, we need adequate training on how to use them, and for developers, they need to really be focusing on system stability and diversified usage channels, so ensuring we can use them on varied devices and on different platforms, and also prioritizing user support. And then for habit, we really need to focus on developing habits using these tools if we do want them to be integrated into our learning design workflows. So for decision makers, you could consider offering achievement badges or specialized certifications to incentivize use. But for developers, they could focus more on the LLM interface and making it more engaging to promote consistent engagement and daily interaction. Trust in the providers. So this is an important one. We really need to focus on fostering an environment of transparency and accountability. So this is more targeted at the developers who really need to focus on adhering to the principles of trustworthy AI. So I'm not going to go into all those points there. And then for behavioral intention, there's a very strong link. Once we've formed an intention to use these tools, we typically do follow through in actually using them. So marketing and engagement strategies can consider the link between intention and use. So this behavioral intention, like we saw, is facilitated by performance efficacy and trust in providers. And then once that has been established, we should provide ample opportunities and facilitating resources to enable learning design professionals to really adopt these tools and engage in sustained use. So yeah, thank you very much. That was a very quick overview and extremely high cognitive load. I do apologize.